by a multiple of 3. So you want to leave that one as a mixed number. So you get, what do you get, 50 something? 51 and 112?
How'd you get that 51 and 112?
How do you find the mean? What do you do? Okay, so you guys, I'm going to repeat something I literally just said, okay? And you correct me if I didn't just say it, okay? So that's why in the early stages of this class you were taught about terminators and repeaters, because you have to know that if it's going to repeat, you don't want to get the decimal. You have to get a mixed number. So that's why we just had this discussion that you have to get a mixed number. So unless your calculator does fractions, you're going to have to kind of do the division on your own on a piece of scratch paper. So what division problem are you doing? Say it again? I can't hear you.
I don't know.
Well, how do you find the mean?
No, I didn't. It was like you got them all up.
Okay, what'd you get when you added them all up?
It was 59.8. I mean 59.083.
Okay, what'd you get when you added all those guys up?
Oh, I forgot the number.
613. 613.
So you should be doing 613 divided by 12. And you kind of have to do it longhand because it's a repeater. Does everybody know why it's a repeater? Because the 12 is a multiple of 3. Okay? So you'll get a mixed number. And that's how come you kind of reviewed fractions in the beginning. So what'd you get? 51 and 112. Agreed?
So that's what I was trying to ask. Like, how'd you get to 112?
Okay, so my question to you is what division problem were you doing?
Oh, you just told me the line totally so.
Okay, so do that. Do that. And do you remember how to do something like this? Do you remember how to do 3 into 7? What'd you do when you did 3 into 7?
You see how many 3 going to the 7?
And that was, and then what'd you do? And then what'd you do? And what'd you do with that 1? No, it's a repeater. You can't make it a decimal. What'd you do with that? You have to make it into what was called a mixed number. Okay, so you might want to go back over that, those 159 review problems we did in the beginning, okay? You take that over that.
Just 2 1/3, right?
And 2 1/3. That's what you have to do here.
So, can you do it with that one, please?
Okay, how many 12s and 6s?
5. I think that's 60.
Before that, like, why, like, throughout the whole problem that we've done and all the...
Yeah, we did decimal.
Yeah, they're
Yeah.
decimals.
Because they were either not repeaters or they told us what place to round off to.
Okay, so if it doesn't say the place to round off to, then we have to leave it as a fraction?
If it's a repeater,
Yeah, well, there was a couple repeaters and
Yeah,
they were still using it as a
Yeah.
fraction.
then somewhere in there he probably said to the hundredths place or something like that. Okay,
Is it
so-
gonna be like that on the test, or you're gonna...
Well, we're gonna go through this practice one today. I don't know. If it says it on the practice one, it'll say it on the original. I mean, on the real. Okay, so how many 12s and 16s?
5. And then the 60, and then bring the 1.
Okay, how many 12s and 13? 1.
Yeah, 1 over 12.
Okay, so,
Oh wait, we just skipped. All right, hold up. So
So
how do you?
Put it on
Oh, okay.
same way,
All right, let's see.
same way we just had.
Yeah.
Okay? Now, the thing you're not gonna like is, you know, this subtraction with mixed numbers and stuff, but, yeah.
So if we know that we're gonna have a repeater, we do it longhand. If we know we're gonna have a terminator, we can do it on the calculator.
That's your call. It's up to you. I do everything longhand, so I don't know how to
You don't
answer
like
that.
to
Some of you guys have calculators that do fractions, so I don't know. It's kind of your call on that. My job is to teach you how to tell ahead of time if it's gonna repeat or if it's gonna terminate.
No problem.
So once you know that, you're kind of on your own.
Okay.
I think it's gonna be decimals. Just by the way you have to subtract it in these next ones, I think it's gonna be decimals.
Well, what's this take away that? What's 51 take away 34?
17.
So this is gonna be negative 17 and 1/12. Right?
And then you square that, or what?
Negative 17 plus. When you're subtracting fractions.
Because if you're looking at a number line, right, and you had
Not if you don't have
34 minus 51 and a half, you will go this way, right? If you had 0 here, the pluses here, and the negatives here, you would go negative because you're doing minus, so you're taking away 51 and a half. So you end up way over here. And that's why it's,
Hey, I can't hear all the different questions, sorry.
So how are you about to square a number like that?
okay.
You have to make them improper. So 17 and a 12,
No, I don't think so.
so
That's what
you
I'm saying, I
do
don't think it's gonna be.
12 times 17 plus 1, you make it improper. And then top times top, bottom times bottom, and then bottom into top.
12 times 17 plus 1 goes on top.
Yeah, and then.
Yeah, that's why I think it's gonna be a decimal.
Yeah, I have not looked at it. They're also not gonna give you 12 things of data for one question. So, that in itself will make it easy, because you won't be dividing by 12. Okay, so you would have to do this problem and put this here, right? Are you following? And then you're gonna have to work your way down. Now granted, it's not a very nice number.
Oh, okay.
Now, this one you're gonna have to borrow, which is what you were asking.
I still don't understand how you got 112 on the first one though.
Well, how do you do that problem right there?
No, because my math, I come up with 11, 12, my math, because you still would have,
No. Okay, how do you do,
the way that I always do
how do you
it,
do negative 5 plus 3? What do you do?
you get negative 2,
Why?
because you're moving 3 places from 5.
Okay, that's one way to look at it. What's, if you didn't have a number line, what was the rule?
It's negative
The greater number.
Yeah, so what was, yeah, somebody had said it over there.
The greater number takes the negative with the sign.
Okay, so you subtracted these guys
Yeah,
and used the sign of the bigger number. I subtract these guys and I use the sign of the bigger number. What's
so you have a 112 on the side, and
what's a 112 take away nothing?
well, my question is how do you get nothing? Whenever I've done subtraction,
Because it says 34 and nothing. I
She
think
has
you're
to settle
thinking
for
of,
17.
if it says 51
She
minus
has to take care of.
34 and a 12, which is
Are you
what
asking
you're
me
gonna
what
have to
it
do
is?
next time. I think that's what you're thinking of, but it doesn't say that.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, this one does.
Oh,
This one does,
yeah.
because this one's gonna, no, it's department, they make everything up. I just keep copies of it in email. This one is gonna do what you're asking, because this one's gonna say 79, take away 51 and 1/12, so that one you're gonna have to borrow. But I think you're thinking of when the bottom guy has a fraction, as opposed to when the top guy has a
so when we're solving for the standard deviation, the end part, it'd be, would we put the whole thing over a fraction?
Well, this one's gonna turn out to be a fraction, yeah, because this
No,
one,
I'm talking on the standard deviation on 34. So would you get 34 or whatever
Well,
12 times 34 is?
no, you're never doing 12 times 34. You're doing 17 and a 12 times 17 and a 12. You're gonna square it to put it here.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so these will be fractions, but these are all gonna have a common denominator, because they're all gonna say 144 on the bottom, right?
Yeah.
So when you add them up, it's just, you're just gonna add the numerators and have it be over 144. So it's ugly arithmetic, yes,
Yeah.
but the process is pretty, you know,
The same.
the same all the way through.
Similar.
Is that right?
So,
I don't know.
And divide it.
okay, so, let's just make sure that you got the process, and because this has so many, ugly numbers that are scaring most of you guys away, let's not do all the math on these fractions, let's do the math on the one in 2.4.1, because there weren't 12 numbers. Yeah, go ahead, you do that. What's 12 times 17 plus 1? What'd you get?
205.
So what's 205 times 205?
42,025.
Say it again,
42,025.
Okay, so there's that guy. So you would,
You're missing a zero and a two.
You're missing 0.
oh, you said 42,025? Sorry, I didn't hear you.
Would you want us to reduce that into a whole number or leave it as a fraction?
I would leave it as a fraction because you still have to add them all up, and they're already gonna have common denominators, so
Well, you could still leave it as the common denominator, just reduce it. down
you
a
could
little
if you
bit.
want, because once you get this, you have one more step to do,
You have to
right?
reduce
So
it to
this isn't really the final answer, so it's kind of your call if you wanna do those as mixed numbers or fractions.
Okay.
Okay, so aside from the fact these are not friendly numbers, the mean is add them up and divide by how many there are, agreed? The variance, don't quit here. What do you have to do to get the variance? Remember that? It's on page, it's on page 176. Because the variance is this guy divided by, and it's gonna be 11 again. Isn't that the same one we got the last time? Because they did it out of the months of the year and it was 12 and 12 minus 1 was 11.
Yeah.
So, I don't know, they must like 12 for some reason.
Wait, so what's variance?
Variance, look on page 174. 176. And it says below is the formula for the variance denoted by S squared. And it's when you take all these guys, the sum of all the squared deviations, and you divide it by the n minus 1. So this guy divided by the 11,
So it's 12 numbers.
okay? And then the standard deviation would be the square root of that guy, and that will always be a decimal. Because that, you can't
Square root
fix
of
square
what
roots
guy?
perfectly unless it's a perfect square.
But what was the last part? So yeah, when it's left with S2 equals, you're not gonna,
That's called the variance. I don't know why they call the variance S squared.
and you don't need to, like, it's not
It's the sum
an
of
algebraic
all
equation where you need to knock off the square, you know what I mean?
Over
That's
n.
this step.
Okay,
This step is to find the square root of that guy.
okay.
And this, they'll always tell you to whatever place, because square roots are decimals. So they'll always tell you to round off the standard deviation to something.
So
Yeah.
the variance is the total?
No, variance is the
Sorry.
total divided by, look on page 176.
I can't find my book right
Okay, well, that's not my problem, look on with your neighbor. Or look in your notes, because I wrote it down the other day. And it says, below is the formula for variance denoted by S squared. So as you take the sum of all these guys, that's why I personally like to put a total column in my chart, because it's the sum of those guys divided by one less than the amount of data. So why don't you look on 2.4.1 and see which of those maybe you have blank.
All of
Well, I'm not gonna do them all. And most of you guys that stayed last Thursday, we got pretty far through them. And they were ugly numbers just like this, unfortunately,
I have to leave the room.
because it was the 12 again. So know why. Yeah, I'll go over them, but I won't do them all. He said all of them.
Can you do those three right there on the board?
No, we did most of them, the people that stayed, you know, on Thursday, I said, start this together today. So we did most of them. So no, I'm not gonna do them, I'll do them after class.
Can I?
Minus 51 and 112.
Right, okay,
So that's gonna take some borrowing.
yeah,
79 minus 51 and 112.
okay,
This is gonna say 51 and 112 all the way down,
all right,
because the mean doesn't change.
okay,
Stays like that forever.
Because there's only one mean for a set of data, okay? So this is the one where you have to borrow, make this 78 and 12/12ths,
okay,
Yeah.
and get 11/12ths, and this is 27 and 11/12ths.
okay. Okay,
Very good.
So now I have to do 27 and 11/12ths
Square.
times 27 and 11/12ths. So you gotta make them improper. So 12 times 27 plus 11,
335.
what is it?
335.
Thank you. Okay, and then 335 times 335 is,
112,225.
thank you.
okay,
Okay, so far so good? You
Yeah.
followed that process?
yeah,
Okay, now we're gonna do this, guys. 63, take away 51 and a 12.
Borrow, we have 260.
Have to borrow again.
62 and 12.
So we get 11 and 11/12ths. And we're gonna square that. So 11 and 11/12ths is 12 times 11 is 132, plus that is 143. And then 143 times 143.
20,149.
okay. And now you're adding all those right
So
there?
then you would, you know, do all that horrible arithmetic, and then you would add just this column. And
Okay,
you'd get, you know, when you're adding fractions, you keep the common denominator.
okay,
So it's still over 144.
all right,
So you would add the numerators, you're gonna get some, whatever it is.
okay,
You take that answer and divide it by 11,
okay,
because that's what the formula says on page 176.
okay,
And then you take the square root of that answer to get the standard deviation.
okay.
Why wouldn't it be like, why is it that we don't do it straight from decimals like from the beginning?
I think we are gonna be, it's just, she wasn't asked that, so she's giving you the like exact number it really is, because when you convert it into a decimal, it's really not that number, cause you're excluding that little repeating.
Right. It changes the value of it. So,
Slightly.
I don't know what they're gonna say. I can tell you, they're not gonna have you divide by 12. They're not gonna have 12 pieces of data in a standard deviation problem.
Well, at least one that's a repeater, because if there's 12, obviously you're gonna end up making a mistake somewhere.
Yeah.
Fraction.
Plus, it's too laborious. You can, for the purposes of a test, you can prove you understand the process if they would just give you 4 or 5 pieces of data. You don't need to have 12 pieces of data. So, the practice one that they asked for has 6 pieces of data. So, not really. I mean, here we did 4 of them. So,
They multiply.
All right.